Hello, Slashy. So welcome to Slash, a horror podcast where we talk about the scares, the screams, and the spooky stuff. My name is Grace.
And my name is Wouter. And today we'll finally be talking about the 2022 horror film Men.
Yes, the scariest of all.
Yeah, fucking Men. Which Grace had been begging me to watch whenever it was possible, and for some reason it wouldn't show up in Dutch cinema anywhere. And it wouldn't stream anywhere, but finally we found a way to stream it somehow. And we got to watch it last night.
I really wonder what's going on with the release of this film, because we think it was probably in cinema when we were on holiday, but that means it must have been shown for only like 2 weeks maybe in the Netherlands. Then in Austria it hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, so it was going to come out when we left.
And we tried to stream it on different platforms, but then it was just US only.
UK, some platforms were doing UK only, but then you had to be UK native, so it wouldn't be fooled by VPNs, sadly.
So really difficult to find a way to watch this legally, basically.
Yeah, also if I'm to believe the Wikipedia page, it has only had an official release in the UK and in the US.
Yeah, fair enough.
And it's now being distributed through other cinemas, maybe scattered across Europe, but it has not had any other official releases.
I honestly think it was like slated to release in the Netherlands and then it didn't. Because I think a lot of Dutch cinemas are really playing it safe right now. Yeah,
for sure. And this is definitely, we'll get that as like a film that is not playing it safe at some point.
Yeah.
So I get why they wouldn't, at least not like to the quote unquote mainstream cinemas. I would have expected this would be an art house cinema film for sure.
Yeah.
But apparently not.
No, the art house in where we live didn't show it. It is on the website of the like more mainstream cinema, but we think again that they probably didn't pull it. Yeah. But
let's get into it so you'll know what we're talking about. Grace, my lovely wife, won't you give us another lovely synopsis?
So Men is a 2022 folk horror film by Alex Garland. It stars Jessie Buckley as Harper, who goes on a retreat to the countryside in order to heal from her abusive husband's traumatic death. The retreat turns to a nightmare as she's stalked and tormented by the men from the village, all portrayed by Rory Kinnear. Harper must fight for her life as the fabric of reality begins to unravel until she finds herself face to face with her deceased husband, pleading for her to love him again.
Thanks.
Very short, very brief.
Very brief, yeah, because that's really all that happens. It's only two people, and Rory Kinnear is all the men, so, as the title suggests, it's all men. Yeah,
and again, we usually say this, the shorter the recap, usually the better the film, because that means the film is really clear and has just really sound clear theme, and especially with horror films, you just gotta be able to nail it down. Making them more complicated doesn't really do anything.
No, for sure.
That's not to say that this was a very straightforward film.
No, exactly, and that was also a little bit of my issue with it at the end. I liked it, let's preface that. I liked the film, I thought it was good. But this is definitely a film that the more I think about it, the more sort of issues I have with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like we were talking about it yesterday, and like I just feel like, the symbolism is really strong and it's a strong message, and really that's the point of the film.
Yeah.
But it does lose me at some points that it doesn't walk that line of what is real and what is not real, what is supernatural, what isn't supernatural. Yeah. And it doesn't really address it either. So, and that loses me for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm having a bit of the opposite arc. Whereas I had really high expectations of this film because I thought the trailer looked wild.
They're insane.
And I really like both these actors.
Yeah.
And I thought it was an interesting theme starting point for a film, right? This idea that there's all these men and they're all played by the same actor, and it's like this idea, at least that's what I anticipated it was going to be about, and I think that's also pretty much what the film is about, is that even if it's not all men who are predators and who hurt women in a sexual way, in a violent way, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Even if it's not all men as a group often fail to hold other men accountable, and in fact will are more likely to like question the woman victim than to actually hold the perpetrator accountable.
Yeah. So it's more the system of men.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's definitely be addressed in this film over and over again.
For sure, yeah.
Then when I saw it, I thought it was really good up until the ending. I think if you find the reviews, most people will say this, where the ending becomes a little bit fuzzy and it loses a little bit of the tension. And when we had just watched the film, I was like, oh, maybe I didn't like it that much after all. Maybe it fell apart a bit for me. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I do really appreciate what this film is trying to do. And I thought it was so genuinely unsettling. Like, we even had to pause the film for a bit because I was getting so creeped out. And I don't think we've ever had to do that because I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah, for sure.
Except for that one time we watched A Cure for Wellness and I fainted, but
yeah, that's a different story.
Disregard that.
Time. Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. The more I think about it, the more I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I won't disagree with you there. I think it's scary as shit, and it's a very well acted, well crafted sort of tense horror film. But
to me, it's not one of those films where it's like, okay, don't poke at it too much because then it'll come undone. Just leave it.
Yeah.
I don't have that feeling. Don't know if that was what you were saying.
No, it's not like, it doesn't like hold up that it's all the people are being portrayed, but that it's all the men and nobody notices. No, I just think like when you see like the whole aftermath of the ending, you know, as is. Yeah. Like, it sort of loses that line of what is paranormal, what has really happened, and that kind of breaks the illusion for me.
Yeah, so maybe we should just get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure, because there's not much going on in between. Like, the ending is clearly just the big climax of the film, and in between is just sort of
building up to that.
Yeah.
So, and I think I would argue that is where the gold is in this film.
Right.
So the film opens with Harper witnessing her husband's death.
Yeah.
And she sees him falling from the apartment building that they live in.
Yeah.
And she sort of sees him falling past their balcony.
Yeah.
What we learn throughout the film is that they had a very strained, if not abusive, relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And Harper told her husband that she wanted a divorce, and as a response, he threatened to end his own life because of that.
I made a very clear point of it that would be her fault.
Yes, very much. And she said, "You are threatening me." And then he immediately spins that around as like, "No, you are, by saying that you want to divorce me, you are threatening my life."
Yeah.
Yeah, you are saying you would prefer a world without me, therefore you would want me to end my own life.
It's
it's really horrible, it's really nasty. And what I'm really grateful for throughout this film is that Harper never stands for it.
No.
She's very clearly like, no, you cannot say this to me. You cannot do this to me. And the fact that you're trying to do this just makes me more sure that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So he becomes enraged, and then starts throwing stuff, and she's texting her friend Riley, I'm going to say.
Yeah, wait, I have the Wikipedia page right here.
Which is the only other named female character. And she texts her, he's really starting to scare me.
Yeah.
Or he's really scaring me.
Yeah, that's it.
And then he grabs her phone. He's like, "What would you say that? You are scaring me by saying that you want to divorce me." And then he is pressuring her to unlock her phone. She doesn't want to do it, and then he hits her.
Yes.
And then she's like, "Okay, you've hit me. Now, like, our marriage was over already, but now
I never want to see you again.
I never want to see you again. Get out, get out." And then the way Harper describes it, she's not sure. He has broken into the apartment above theirs.
Yeah.
And she's not sure whether his plan was to climb down their balcony onto, like the neighbor's balcony onto Harper's balcony to get to her again, or if he decided, I'm going to jump.
Yeah. But either way, he fell down.
Either way, he fell down.
Yeah.
And throughout the film, we see that, of course, Harper feels terrible about this.
Yeah.
But it's the male characters who are sort of like trying to make her feel guilty about it, or presuming that she feels guilty about
exactly.
it.
She never says herself that she feels guilty, but that's what they are saying. Yeah.
Because even in a way, she seems sort of relieved and renewed at the beginning of the film.
Yeah. And I think that she also plays that tension really well, as you said while we were watching it. Like, on one hand, it's horrible to see the person whom you've been married to die in such a way, but she did want to divorce him, and it had become even more horrible. So in a way, she did get what she wanted, because she wanted to be away from him, but not like this, obviously.
No.
Yeah.
And it's, she's still out of that really abusive, restraining life.
Yeah.
So she's gotten her freedom back.
But at what cost?
Yeah.
She got her freedom back, but even then, her husband the ex-husband is still asserting control over it in a certain way by ending things this way.
Yeah. And here we also see that really what's happening is her husband being violent towards her.
Yeah.
James being violent towards her, right? He's threatened to hurt himself because of what she's done.
Yeah.
He's yelling, he's throwing things, he's hit her, and now he's presumably ended his own life with the specific intention that would traumatize her.
Yeah.
Because he says that explicitly.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that, so you will have to live with it. And yet, Harper is supposed to feel guilty.
Yeah.
She's supposed to see him as the victim. And that's just a sort of red thread throughout this film, where all these men feel sort of victimized by Harper because she's not responding to her advances, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's these different characters that she meets. You have Jeffrey, who's the caretaker of the home, and he's sort of this very awkward, like white knighty, older gentleman.
Yeah.
And it's clearly, he's sort of
nice
in a very pushy way. Like, he insists on carrying her bags, and he insists on buying her drink, and he, very...
Even though she says no, like, very clearly a few times.
And it's that thing where it's like, well, he's just being nice, he's just being helpful, but he's also just crossing her boundary over and over again.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what his intentions are. If she says no, like, just don't do it. Like, you're not helping if they don't want to be helped. And
then there's this kid who is like, oh, do you want to play hide and seek with me? But he says it in a really creepy way, and she's like, I'm not really feeling like a game, sorry. And then he cusses her out, and it's like, oh, well, why don't you just play a game with this kid?
Yeah.
Why don't you just...
what's the harm?
What's the harm? Why couldn't you just play along?
Yeah.
Even though he's being really creepy and immediately also cusses her out, even though she very politely says no. I'd rather not.
Yeah.
And I think maybe worst of all, the vicar.
Oh man, so fucking slimy.
Yeah, who she sort of instigates this conversation and asks about her husband and everything, and he's the one that also implies that she must feel really guilty, and that she maybe should have given him a chance to apologize, and if she had, then he would still be alive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's touching her very inappropriately and clearly sort of getting off on her presence, and then sort of in the ending when he comes into the house, he's also very much like, oh, you've put these images of carnality in my head just by your presence, and it's all your fault. You've made me think these impure thoughts.
Yeah. You've been leading me on,
Yeah, it's so disgusting. And
I also found it particularly disgusting that he said, like, do you remember when you lost your virginity? Because that's an inappropriate question to ask anyway.
Implies that, like, age thing also.
Yeah, exactly, There's like that purity and...
very disgusting.
Yeah, gross.
And I think up until, like, 80% of the film, we have this woman who has gone through this really traumatic experience. She goes to this village. Everyone is Rory Kinnear. That's not addressed by the film, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Like, it makes a very clear point to you as an audience, like, these men are all sort of in cahoots together. They're all, in ways, sort of supporting the bad behavior of each other.
Yeah.
Or at the very least not doing anything, and
they're complicit.
They're all complicit.
Yeah.
And but the things they are doing, as creepy as they are all things that do happen and can happen.
Yeah.
And if you are female presenting, probably have happened to you.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this, which I think is one of the scariest scenes in the film, even though it has no, the ending becomes quite supernatural, and this has no supernatural elements at all. But it's the pub scene.
Yeah.
So at quite the beginning of the film, Harper goes on a walk through the forest, and she's stalked by a naked man.
Yeah.
And he then follows her home and tries to get into the house. So she calls the police. They get there. They
arrest him.
But the police are already very much trying to like downplay, like, oh, he's just confused, and we think he's harmless, and nothing really happened.
Yeah.
Because they got there in time, but clearly like something terrible could have happened because he was quite violently trying to get into the house. And then later that night, she goes to the pub, and then the police officer's there. And then she finds out that
they've released him
because, nothing really happened.
Yeah.
And there's just all these things sort of combined. You have her in the pub, the only woman. There's these two men at a table. They don't say anything, but they're just looking at her, leering at her.
The whole time.
You have Jeffrey, who has insisted on buying her a drink, even though she was not comfortable with that, because no such thing as a free drink.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the police officer, who immediately gets very annoyed at her when she's like, well, should you have released him? Because, he did basically attack me.
Yeah.
And they're all sort of trying to downplay it, like, oh, he's harmless. And then sort of Jeffrey joins in, and they're trying to placate her. But there's also this sort of like charged energy of you're just not safe here.
Yeah.
And I got so uncomfortable. And then she leaves, and she wants to go home, and she hears a noise. She hears someone. And it's that moment where she's like, if I go home, I have to go in the direction of the sound. So I'm not safe. If I go back to the pub,
there's all those men there.
And I'm not safe. And if I don't go, I'm here outside in the dark in the middle of the street. And I'm not safe. And I think any female presenting person has experienced that feeling where you're like, no matter where I go, I won't fully be safe because I'm alone and it's night. And I thought that was really, really creepy. And I think that's sort of where the gold is in this film. It's these moments that are, of course, heightened by this, that because it's all these same acts and it's really well played and, stuff's going on.
It is just creepy,
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it's also because you've been Harper at some point. You've been in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. So you would say that it as horrible as it accurately reflects the female presenting experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Because I just saw a quote from the Guardian or the Independent. I'm going to say, let's see where it is. The Independent, Clarice Lowley from the Independent says, it suggests that all male filmmaker needs to do to earn feminist credentials to show us men doing bad things. 2 stars.
Oof. Right. Yeah. No. I really disagree. Because I think, first of all, it's not a film just about men doing bad things. It's clearly a film about how men as a group are sort of complicit, right?
Yes.
And you actually talk about that really beautiful metaphor with the apples.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. There's a set piece. There's in the garden, the front garden of the house that Harper stays at, there's this apple tree, big ass apple tree. And when she arrives at the house, she picks one, but there's already a few windfall apples on the ground. And then there's this scene where she's being haunted by all these visions, and the naked man inside the house, and then it's the cop again. And then the tree starts shaking, and all the apples fall to the ground. And I thought there was kind of the thing where men always say, oh, it's always a few bad apples that speak for all of us, but there are no good or bad apples. It's all apples. We're all part of the same bunch of apples, so it's no use pointing at the bad apples. We all come from the same tree.
And I think there's very few films that actually dare to make that argument, because I think it's almost always, you'll have like a really bad character and it'll be like, oh, this character represents like bad men, and then there's always a good man to sort of like counter that, right?
Yeah, which in this film would be the Jeffrey character.
But he's in it too.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so poignant. And I think that's where it's like, okay, we're making this feminist message. We're saying this feminist message, if you want to call it a feminist message, because that sort of makes it seem...
It's not like a yay girl power film or
No,
whatever. And
it's not necessarily feminist to say that just straight facts that women are, that's not safe for a woman to go out alone at night.
Yeah.
It's not a feminist statement.
No.
Right? And the other thing I think to say, oh, you just have to make a film about men doing bad things. Almost every film is about men doing bad things, Like, that's just a really dumb thing to say. Because then I can say, nowadays to make a Marvel film, you just have to make a film about a man doing a bad thing and a good man doing a good thing, and then they fight.
Yes.
This is a really...
one of them has a hammer.
Yeah. Name me one film where there's not a conflict, where the conflict isn't person doing a bad thing.
I was going to say B-movie, but even B-movie has a person doing a bad thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that's just really reductive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, lots of British newspapers are really panning this film. Mostly for the ending, I gotta say.
Okay, well, let's get into the ending. So, like I said, about 80% of this film is fairly... you can imagine that this is happening to Harper, and then they don't all look like the same actor.
Yeah, if you just disregard that for a sec, yes.
And it still works, right?
Yes.
So, what happens at the end is Harper goes home, and she really feels unsafe, and she's calling Riley, and she's like, Riley, I really want to go home. And Riley's like, you're not going to give this up, because if you really wanted to go here, we're not going to let these men ruin it. I'm going to get in my car and I'll be there in like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Go, Riley. But that means that our protagonist still has to survive for 4 hours. The house Lufa's like in the mic. So she still has to survive for like 4 hours. And the house is starting to be attacked by men. So it's, like you said before, at some point it's the policeman, and then she goes outside, and the policeman is just standing there not doing anything, which I think is also, we should take quite literally, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not so much that the policeman is an aggressor, but he's complicit because he's not protecting her either. He's not believing her when she's literally telling him, like, hey, this person is out to get me, you need to do something, and he's just standing there watching. You have these leering men at the pub who are running after her. There's a kid who appears in the house who's like, oh, I want to play hide and seek with you. It's sort of this one man just morphing into these different men, all in some way enacting violence.
Yeah.
Or at least being complicit in that violent act. And then she fights them, and then she like cleaves his hand in two.
Yeah.
But like at that point, this character has sort of surpassed being a human being.
Yeah, because then every other man, like she cleaves the hand of the naked man in two, and then every other man also has it.
Yeah.
The cleft hand.
Yeah.
Which also mimics one of the injuries that James had when he died.
Yeah. Then at some point, the man transforms into the Green Man.
Yeah.
Which was also on the altar in the church.
Yeah.
Because there's also this, because the naked man sort of wants to become the Green Man.
Yeah.
This one gets a little bit of vague. And there's an element in this that nature is also sort of a sexual aggressor. Like the dandelion who sort of scatters himself. Right?
All over nature,
All over nature is a
very violently tossing its seed.
Recurring image in the movie.
Yeah.
I'd see indeed like this idea of like spreading the seed across the land.
Yeah.
Also, the apples in a way are also that image just over and over again.
Yeah.
So he transforms into the Green Man, but he's pregnant. And this is where it gets real weird. Because then he gives birth to one of the men we've seen before. But he's also pregnant. And then he also gives birth.
To the vicar.
And then it's just this sort of like chain of Rory Kinnear birthing Rory Kinnear in a different wig. Right?
Yes.
And it just...
And then the final one is James.
Yeah, but it gets really weird, because it sounds really weird, it gets really weird. And Harper also becomes a little bit...
disinterested,
apathic to it.
Yeah.
Because they all sort of come out of the womb, like, screaming for her, for, like, motherly love or sex or whatever, right? And she's just...
comfort.
Comfort. They all demand that of her. And she's just...
very whiny.
No, I'm just going to turn around and walk away. Yeah. Which, it makes it a little silly. I think both of us were kind of losing...
It lost us at that point, yeah.
It lost us a little bit, right? Yeah.
And also, clearly, the film kind of knew that it would lose us, because I won't get too graphic, because the first few times they give quote-unquote normal birth, as you would expect.
Yeah.
But they probably realized by the third time, okay, that's not interesting to look at anymore. So then they started giving birth through, like, different orifices in the body, and it's like, great, this is even more gruesome, but you're still just giving birth to a person, so didn't have to do this.
Yeah. And then the last one indeed is James. And then you sort of feel like, okay, it's all been leading up to this. And then they're sitting there and he's just like, oh, look what you've done to me. You've done this to me. And then she's like, what do you want? And then he's like, your love. And that's sort of the main theme and conclusion of this film, is that all these men sort of like, from their very, very violent birth, demand this love from their mother in like a violent way. Like the being birthed is a violent act.
Yeah.
That's sort of what the film is saying. And then immediately after they've sort of enacted this violence on their mother, they demand love and comfort. And then they grow up and all they want to do is sort of return to the womb, to the almighty vagina, in a sexual way.
Mm-hmm.
And then they feel like they are entitled to it, and like they demand it of the woman, and everything that sort of stands in their way, they see that as violence towards them.
Yeah.
So a woman saying no, or being disinterested, or not giving them comfort, not giving them her body, is all violence against them. They are the victim of this woman that has placed herself on the pedestal.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, the thing. Like, she should love James after all of that.
Yeah, because he is her husband.
Because he is her husband. Because she's hurt him so much. Because he would do anything for her love.
Yeah. He would die for her love.
He would die for her love. And she still won't give him. What a bitch, right?
Yeah.
And then he says it, and she's just looking at the axe in her hands. It's just like, yeah.
And then the title card, men.
Yeah. And then we see her sitting outside, and then Riley arrives, and everything is as it was during sort of the really weird scenes.
Yeah, and that's where it kind of lost me.
Because then it's like, okay, so we are supposed to interpret that this is everything that happened here really happened.
Yeah, I think even less so like the blood trail I can sort of get, because there might have been a violent scuffle. She's just been running around with a knife and cut herself, whatever. Yeah. But there's this whole scene where she tries to drive away, and then she accidentally runs into Jeffrey, who then drags her out of her car, drives off, turns around and tries to run her over, and then slams the car into like a pole.
Yeah.
And that is also there, like the broken car and the broken pole and shit. And that must also all have happened. And I'm like, but that is weird. That nobody's really addressing this in a way, or like, that's not more like, I don't know. And it didn't really need a whole montage of what the fuck happened here, but it just
then just leave it. Then don't do the ending.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't need to see like Riley pulling up to the house and like her knowing everything's going to be okay or whatever.
I guess they wanted that image of like, oh, Harper persevered, right?
Yeah.
But like, I got that already.
Then I would have preferred a shot where Harper is sitting in the car with Riley and they're already driving away or something, and just leave that whole thing out of the picture.
Yeah. Also, just a side note, Did you pick up on the fact that they were trying to make the house a female body?
No.
Yeah, because that's why, like, the men were all trying to enter it violently, and especially the...
Oh, through the mailbox.
The
mailbox,
mailbox,
I didn't catch that. Yeah.
What is that called, a mailbox? Mailbox is the American thing, right? That's outside.
Letter
slit.
Slit, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, not native.
Yeah. So, yes, but you can imagine the imagery of somebody sticking their hand through the slit in the door. Yeah. No, that I did catch, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was more like the whole shape of the house. No,
yeah, I think the house is as sort of like seen as a female location then.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because it sort of provides this nourishment and protection. It's the womb.
It's the home, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely like symbolically and thematically very interesting, very spooky and very tense, and also like judging on your experience, scary on a level if sadly you have the female presenting experience. But just in the end,
it didn't really matter. Sorry,
that's fine.
it just kind of unraveled a bit. Too much.
Yeah. It just lost the tension for a second, but that was enough for me.
Apart from that, it's a stunning film.
Very beautifully shot.
Yes, lots of really lovely, lush nature shots as well. There's one deer shot which I found a bit gratuitous. Yeah. Sort of a rotting deer corpse, and you're like, yes, I guess we're watching a horror film. I guess I need to be included.
I guess we're watching a Slipknot music video.
Yeah, but it really made me want to go for a walk, and actually we did go on quite a nice nature walk today because it was all the outside locations looked really lovely, to be honest. Which was also this idea of like all these nature being in bloom, and also sort of almost feeling like things were coming in bloom around Harper.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yes, that was really lovely to look at. It's really beautifully shot. The sound design was really good. The music is really, really creepy. And so these things where she like screams in anguish, and that harmonizes with the score.
Yeah, definitely.
That was really, really good.
Yeah, very Ari Aster-esque feel in that sort of sense.
There's cat hair everywhere. How could that have happened, Lufa?
Nice that you joined us for an episode again. It's been a while.
Yeah. It's this. I guess not much more to say about the film. In that sense, it is very straightforward.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. But I did live up to expectations. I did. I knew it was going to get weird. It got weird. Really scary. It was really ambitious. Yeah. And it definitely made up to its ambition as well. Like I think it had a clear vision, and it stuck to it, and we can only commend it for that.
And I also think that if this had a lesser cast, it would have fallen apart.
Yes,
we are
definitely now becoming Rory Kinnear fans.
Absolutely, been a fan, you know.
Yeah, it's really funny because we were like, oh, cool, that one actor from Years and Years is in there. We always keep forgetting his name. We're never forgetting now, Rory Kinnear.
Yeah. He's also in Our Flag Means Death, where he also plays multiple characters.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. It's just really good. And I was looking at, maybe it was his IMDb, where they were like, character actor. And I was like, not that is like a bad thing, but I almost felt a bit like a disservice.
Yeah. If anything, he's a huge theatre actor. Like, he's with the National Royal Theatre. Like, he's played Hamlet, he's played Iago, he's played Macbeth.
Oh, I think
he has played Caliban.
He's played Caliban in Penny Dreadful.
The creature.
Yeah, the creature. Yeah. So, of course, you're talking about The Tempest.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm thinking Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's great. He's fabulous. Yeah. And he makes all the characters so distinctly awful. Yeah,
for sure. It's really hard because, like, it's easy to play yourself 5 times. It's difficult to play 5 distinct people while all looking the same.
Yeah, exactly, because the point is that they all look the same. They're really not trying to disguise that too much.
No.
You do all give them, like, some defining feature, because you need to be able to see who they are quite quickly, just visually. But it really is just him in a different wig, right? And then
Yeah.
the policeman is just him in a police uniform.
Yeah, and then the publican is just him with the beard.
Yeah, exactly. They really don't want to disguise that as the same actor because that's the point as well.
Yeah.
So then it's really up to him to make them all feel so different. And I really do. I think especially Jeffrey is really, really skin-crawlingly creepy. Like,
Yeah.
the vicar is, but the vicar is, like,
Overtly creepy.
overtly, but Jeffrey is the real terror.
Yeah. Jeffrey is, I think, if I'm allowed to say, I think more scary because that's the type of person it would be really... makes it hard for you to say no to.
Yeah.
Because he's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will also abuse that,
Yeah, for sure.
knowingly or unknowingly.
Yeah.
The kid was really creepy too.
Yeah. Which, yeah, you told me that people were sort of shitting on how the kid looked because that, of course, Rory Kinnear is not a child, so they CG'd his face onto a child actor's
Probably,
head. Yeah, I know, I've seen on Wikipedia, the child is played by a normal child. And it looks really weird, like it looks a little bit like how the chimps look in Planet of the Apes.
It looks like Polar Express.
Yes, it does. It looks like Polar Express. Yeah, I do. But, you know, it kind of works for the film. I don't hate it.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I saw some people like, oh, this film looks bad CGI. And it's like, that's kind of the point of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kid was really creepy too.
Yeah.
And really, really scary and aggressive as well. But it's like, it's a kid. You can't really do anything because you're always going to be... If it's a kid, you're always the aggressor, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really genius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Like, the more you think about it, the more it all just works and comes together. But I really do think that the ending is the weakest link here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, liked it. I highly recommend. Do mind yourself. It is quite a heavy film, like thematically, and the ending is just really graphic. Like you can do all sorts of gore stuff, but like it's really explicit in that way. You know, the birthing
scenes are
scenes.
just really disgusting.
Yeah. So do mind yourself if you don't like that.
This is not a film for everyone. Like, I definitely wouldn't recommend this to someone who isn't necessarily... Like, there are a few films that we've done where I'm like, if someone's not into horror necessarily,
just watch
but they like thrillers, or they like some sort of tension in their film, or it's just a really good film, then I would recommend it. And this, I would say, I would only recommend it to people who are fans of like horror, but specifically like art house
horror films.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, highly agree. And I think...
What is the other actor called? He's also called Jesse, I think.
You mean the lead?
No, he's also in Jungle Cruise, and he was in Antlers. Did we review Antlers?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
Oh, him from I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Yeah.
Jesse Plemons. I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, so Jesse Plemons.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, I'd be keen on seeing, like, them all in a film, because I feel like they're just in everything, so...
Yeah, for sure.
Now needs to converge.
Yeah, also no shade to Rory Kinnear, but I think Jesse Plemons would also have killed in this role for Older Men. He has that vibe.
No, I'm sticking with Rory.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was really good.
It was really good, yes.
And really weird.
Yeah, definitely worth the watch. It's not that long, it's like an hour and a half. So if you got a free night and you don't mind losing some sleep, definitely watch this film.
Yeah.
And on that note, I've been Wouter.
I've been Grace.
And you've been slashed. Stay hydrated.